Ever walked into a store and instantly felt relaxed or energized or in a better mood just because of the music that's playing? That's not an accident. In fact, I've had a few grocery store runs, and let me tell you, I'm not a fan of going to the grocery store, but a few grocery store runs where if they're playing just the right music, it can make grocery shopping just a little bit more enjoyable. Well, music sets the mood, and in your classroom, it can actually do the same thing. And today, we're going to talk about one of SEAL teachers' favorite things, and that is soundtracking your classroom. How the right background music can affect your students' behaviors. It can boost their focus, it can calm anxiety, it can create an environment where learning just flows. Now, as you're listening today, if you really start to love the strategy that I'm about to share with you and you want to learn even more about how to create a calm and connected and creative classroom, well, I want to encourage you to sign up for my free class, which is called Transform Your Classroom into a Place of Calm, Connection, and Creativity. Inside the class, I'm going to be sharing with you the 3-step framework that I've used myself and shared with hundreds of other teachers to transform their classroom and improve their impact for their students. I'm going to share with you the 5 big mistakes that you can avoid when you want to support your students' social and emotional development. And I'll even talk about why you don't need to act like a classroom therapist to have a calm classroom and what you can do instead. If that sounds good to you, then go ahead over to theinspiredclassroom.com/class and get yourself signed up. Hey friends, welcome to Enjoy Teaching Again, a podcast for teachers who love teaching but need a little inspiration to bring the joy back. I'm your host, Elizabeth Peterson, classroom teacher, arts integration specialist, and your guide to making teaching meaningful, fun, and creative again. I know your teaching days are tough with disengaged students, battling behaviors, and going home each day feeling overwhelmed and exhausted. But together, we can change that. I can't wait to share with you some creative ways to engage your students, build those important connections, and teach with creativity, confidence, and purpose. It's time for you to enjoy teaching again. So locate that cold coffee of yours, grab your favorite pen, I know you have one, take a deep breath, and let's dive in. It's time to get inspired. Now, I used to think that using music as a background was a bad idea. This actually came from the fact that I am a music major. I spent my entire senior year in college developing lessons and an entire philosophy of how to use active listening inside the classroom to inspire learning, which, by the way, I can't wait to share some of those ideas and activities with you inside this podcast. So be sure to subscribe because that is certainly coming up in the near future. So the thought of passively listening, basically ignoring the music or the sound inside the background, seemed just to be like an insult to musicians everywhere, right? Because basically what you're doing is you're putting music, something that musicians and composers have spent so much time on, putting it in the background. Because I truly, truly believed that all music is created to be listened to. But you know what? Years later, I changed my mind. Slightly anyway. I changed my mind and decided to give music a new focus in my classroom in the background. And I'll tell you that the first time I actually decided to really give this idea of soundtracking my classroom and putting music purposefully and passively into the background of my class, it changed my mind entirely on how this could actually give such an amazing benefit for my students and for myself. I really decided to give this music a new focus in my classroom in the background. It made such a dramatic shift in students' focus. What I actually did was I conducted my own experiment and wanted to increase see if it would actually increase my students' silent reading stamina. It was in my 4th grade classroom, and we actually kept track. At first, I kept track of this secretly, and I introduced this whole idea of sound tracking, which I'll be telling you all about in just a few minutes. And I tried to see, how long my students' reading stamina could sustain. And by that, I meant really kids would go to a corner, get started right away, go into, like their own little spots in the classroom, get started right away, and be seriously silent reading on their own. And as soon as one student kind of just got distracted, I stopped the clock, so to speak, and tracked the time. And soon, after just the first couple of attempts, I let the kids in on what I was doing. And we all worked on this together using music and sound in the background. I actually have a blog post. I'll link to that in the show notes, that it describes everything and even has a picture of the actual graph we used in the classroom. You see, music wasn't just quote unquote background noise in this case. It was being used as a really superb teaching tool that impacted the students' emotions. It impacted their ability to focus, and it also impacted their behavior in a positive way. Now I use music in my classroom all the time in this way. I soundtrack my classroom, and what it does is it's like laying a warm blanket over my classroom, which is so helpful because in my school, we have a modified open concept school. So we have noises out in the hallway all the time, and utilizing music, especially in my situation, just really almost creates like this bubble around my class. And when you have walls, if you're lucky enough to have a classroom where you have walls and where you have doors, and those of you who have ever worked in an open concept school, you know what I'm talking about, how thankful those teachers should be, right, to have walls and doors. This can work so well for you as well, because it just creates that atmosphere. What you're doing is you're creating an atmosphere in your classroom just like you would if you were DJing a dance. So let's get right into it. I want to share with you how to actually introduce this concept of sound tracking into your classroom, because you actually do have to do it in a specific way. You have to do it right. You can't just start playing music and expect, and assume that it's just going to work. In fact, I have actually been guilty of this a number of times over the years. And it's not until I actually take the 10 or so minutes to actually introduce this to my students does it actually work. You got to get a little bit of explicit instruction on what it is you're doing inside your classroom, and give your students the opportunity to buy into this whole idea so that it really does work for them. And of course, have it work for you. All right, so I want to share with you the 6 steps to introducing sound tracking to your students. Step 1 is, first you need to just pick a simple assignment for your class. This is going to be something they can do completely independently and on their own. This is because you want to start introducing this idea to them with something that, is not going to be too strenuous for them, not something that you have to really instruct them with. And this can be something like a math review paper. It could be a simple question assignment. It can be something as simple as like a maze or or word search or crossword puzzle, a coloring page even. Just something really, really simple that they can just go to their seats and dive in and get the job done. Okay? So once you have that and you have the music that you're going to be using, then you're going to go on to step 2. And step 2 is allowing the students to preview the music. Now, if you have a meeting area, I would highly suggest gathering your students to your meeting area and listening to the music together for about, 30 or 60 seconds. You can also have them do this at their seats, of course, but I want you to turn the music on and first tell them that you're going to be sharing some music with them, and you just want their first impression of it because you want to try utilizing this music to help them as they work on an assignment. And then press play. Have the students listen silently without any other distraction in the room. Have them listen for about 30 to 60 seconds. You may even ask them to take a nice deep breath in and out as they can just kind of calm themselves down and listen to the music. And once those few moments are over, go ahead and fade out the music and then ask them, what did they think? What did they think of the music? How did the music make them feel? What does this music have in it that would be a good choice for them to be playing or for you to be playing for them as they're working? Now, generally what you're going to do is you're going to choose some kind of slow, calming music, maybe some kind of like alpha wave type of music, maybe some slow classical music. I'm going to leave that up to you. All right. So choosing something that's appropriate for students to be listening to as they're working quietly at their seats. And usually what students will do is they'll say, it's calming, it's peaceful, it's slow. That's the type of music that I encourage you to use if you're going to use this in days and weeks ahead for your independent work time or even silent reading time. And then once they've given you some insight to what they think of the music, then I want you to lead them through a little visualization. Now, to set them up for some success with this, I have them kind of just get a little comfortable. Again, take a nice deep breath in and out. And I let them know that I'm going to start the music again. And then I want them to close their eyes and go ahead and visualize what I'm walking them through. And I'll talk them through going back to their seats, getting their paper out, making sure they have the pencil that they need, and start working on the music, start working on the paper and doing so in a calm and focused way. Now, some of your students may be hesitant to close their eyes, which is fine. So, when I ask students to do a little visualization like this, I'll say, close your eyes if you're comfortable. I will always keep mine open to make sure that everybody is safe. And then I also offer an alternative. If they don't want to close their eyes, I encourage them to, put their hands in their head in their hands, and maybe put their eyes down and stare at a spot on the floor or on the rug or on the desk in front of them so that they can kind of just block out other distractions around them and visually just block everything else out. And then they can do the visualization inside their head. So once I walk them through that and kind of give them a little opportunity to experience what this will feel like with the music playing, them playing it like a movie in their head, then it's go time. So for step number 4, I start the music again. And I may get a little bit of a reflection after we do the visualization in step 3. But then for step 4, I start the music at the beginning again. And then as the music is playing, if the students are gathered at the meeting area, I'll point to them one by one and ask them to go back to their seats and to calmly get themselves started on the assignment. And I want them to work really for a short amount of time. I want this first time to be as successful as possible. That's why the assignment has to be super simple. And that's why for step 4, you're only going to have them work for, you can kind of gauge it. Maybe 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, probably no more than 7 or so minutes. Because you want, again, them to be successful. You want them to be able to have had this experience enough so that when they come back, they can actually reflect on what made it successful. And then that's what step 5 is. So step 5, after you've again faded out the music for step 4, call the students back over to your meeting area, or, just have them put their stuff down and be ready to have some time for reflection and get the students' feedback. Now, generally, you have set them up for success, and so they're going to have positive things to say. If students didn't like it, maybe they didn't like the music, maybe they didn't like the experience, maybe it was just a little weird or awkward for them, that's totally fine. Validate their experience, but let them know that this is something that you really want to try again and again for them so that they can be more calm, more focused, and have that ability to do their work with as little distraction as possible. Because what the music is supposed to do is allow them to have that bubble of focus for themselves. It's like giving yourself your own personal work space bubble. So after step 5 and you've had that time for reflection, step 6 is very simple, and that is to do it again. And maybe it's do it again right then and there if you have time in that period of your lesson, but not to give up. To make sure that you practice this again and again. And you may find that every once in a while it's not working, but that's okay. That's a time for you to maybe take a 5 minutes and review why you're doing this sound tracking, why this strategy is so important for your students. Because the more you can practice a strategy like this, which is a social emotional strategy, it's actually one of our SEAL strategies, social emotional artistic learning. It's one of the best strategies, or I should say the most popular and most loved strategies by people who go through SEAL Teacher Academy, because it works. But it works because you practice it and you keep on using it. And what you may find is that the more you do it, there will be some students who will really start to actually apply this strategy, not just to inside their classroom, but also they'll start using it outside of the classroom. They'll start recognizing how it can help them while they're doing their homework. Now, this is something, the sound tracking is something that you can do with so many different parts of your day. I mentioned at the beginning of this episode how doing sound tracking in your classroom is like being a DJ for your classroom. Just like a DJ will kind of change the atmosphere of a dance with the music that he or she chooses to use. You can bring the energy up at a dance, you can bring it down. And for those of you old school people out there, you know that so many times when we were at our middle school and high school dances, the DJ would end with Stairway to Heaven, right? Because it was long and it was slow and it just kind of finalized everything, right? That was done on purpose. So you can use music throughout your day. Maybe you use music as students are coming into your classroom, as you are actually giving instructions, as you're teaching lessons, as your students are doing independent work. And the music and the songs may change from different parts of the day depending on what your needs are for your students. You may have different music playing for independent work versus silent reading time, versus partner or group work, versus greeting time, versus clean up time. So there are so many different ways that you can use different types of music to help yourself soundtrack your classroom. And that's something you will learn when you join me inside of SEAL Teacher Academy. This and all the ins and outs and the tips and the tricks of how to make sound tracking such an integral part of your day to help with student behavior, help with student focus, and heck, help with your enjoyment in your own classroom. So I want you to try playing some kind of instrumental music during independent work time this week and notice how your students respond. But remember, don't just start playing. Make sure that you take the time to go through the 6 steps to really introduce sound tracking into your classroom and introduce it in a way where your students will understand what it is you're trying to help them with. And then get their responses. Does it change their focus levels? Does it change their mood? How about their engagement? And I would love for you to, once you've done this, go ahead and share your experience inside of our Inspiring Teachers Facebook community. Oh, come on over to our community and share with us there. I'll put the link to that community down in the show notes, okay? Now, if you want more teacher-centered strategies like this, I want to encourage you to check out my free class. It's called Transform Your Classroom into a Place of Calm, Connection, and Creativity, where we'll go over so many ways that you can really start to gain control back into your classroom so that it's much more enjoyable for you and more effective for your students. Until next time, this is Elizabeth, and I want to remind you to keep inspiring yourself. I hope this episode inspired you, encouraged you, or gave you a fresh idea to try. And if so, I would love for you to take a screenshot and text it to one of your teaching buddies. I'm so grateful that you landed here with me today, and it would mean the world to me if you would leave me a review over on Apple Podcast. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode. This is Elizabeth Peterson reminding you to get inspired so you can be inspiring to your students and enjoy teaching again.